All right, students, welcome to week 3, lecture 2. We're going to be talking about marketing environmental factors. You have a quiz this week related to marketing environmental factors, so this lecture will help you out with that quiz. So here's your learning objectives. And by the way, if my volume is ever too high or too low, you can adjust your sound settings. I'm trying to have the mid-range for your sound here, so it's not too much for you. Uh, for this week, you want to be able to identify the marketing environmental factors and explain how they can impact a firm's marketing efforts. I'm going to give you some scenarios towards the end of this lecture to help you with this piece. And again, you have a quiz this week related to this topic. Let's dive in. So you can read this on your own, but the way to think about marketing environmental factors is this. It's not about the environment, like, oh, is the company doing things that are good or bad for the environment? That's not at all what marketing environmental factors means. When we talk about marketing environmental factors, we're talking about horizon issues, things that are out there in society, in the economy, and competitors and technology and legal issues, things that can impact your business down the road. So you'll see in my second paragraph, I give an example of Blockbuster, a large chain where you used to go to the store and pick out your movie and drive it home and watch the movie in your video cassette player or DVD player, and then take it back to the Blockbuster and do it in that fashion. And what's interesting about Blockbuster is there was a period when Netflix was early in its business model, creating this streaming media video platform, which we all knew overtook, obviously, the way we watch videos. But Netflix needed money, and so they approached Blockbuster and asked them if they wanted to be a partner in their business. And Blockbuster declined. They didn't think streaming video was going to be very popular. Obviously, they were wrong. So as a business and as a marketer for your business, you have to be aware of these marketing environmental factors. You have to have your ear to the ground and know what's coming down the pike that might impact your business and your marketing efforts. In your second to last paragraph there, you'll see the marketing environmental factors. So let me cover these in some more detail. I want you to focus on the 4 marketing environmental factors that are listed at the bottom. And we'll also cover competitive environment, which is up towards around 1 o'clock on this slide that you have here. So we have competitors. We have the economic environment, like interest rates. We have and how the economy is doing, recession. We have the technology environment, technological, what's changing with technology. We have political and legal, the government passing laws that impact businesses. And we have things that are happening in the society with cultural and social factors. So all of these collectively, marketers have to have a pulse on all of these environmental factors to consider which of these are going to potentially hurt or provide opportunities for their business. Let me elaborate. Let's look at technology first. So let's all ask ourselves the question, can you think of technology that is happening right now, new technology, that might impact how businesses operate? You know, it wasn't that long ago that when you used to purchase software for your computer, whether it was the new Windows or something else, that they would give you a box full of CDs and you would load it onto your PC and update your PC with that new software. Obviously now that's all done with subscription models. We used to also save all of our work on our computer and have to get extra memory cards and flash drives and separate external disks. Obviously that's all now gone to cloud computing, whether you use Dropbox or Google Drive or OneNote, all these different options. So technology can quickly render a business obsolete. Take, for example, driverless cars. Driverless cars are practically here. We have the technology to sell these now, and they're starting to show up in different parts of the world. Trucks, there's countries that allow driverless trucks. What if you're an insurance company and you sell auto insurance? What does driverless cars mean for your business? If people start using driverless cars, how does that impact auto insurance? Is it the owner of the car who still has to carry insurance, even though they're not driving the car anymore and therefore not responsible for what's happening in the car? Or is it the automobile manufacturer? So this is just an example of how changes in technology can rapidly change an entire business or an industry as a whole. So think about it for a minute and maybe come up with an idea of examples in technology that you can think are going to impact businesses down the road. And include those in your discussion board for this week. Even if the discussion board has other questions, you can add that piece in. The next environmental factor is political and legal factors. So this is the government passing legislation. Look what's happening with social media platforms and online businesses. We see the General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR, as you see in your third bullet point, which was passed in Europe, that significantly changes how online businesses, your Googles, your Facebooks, how they can collect data and how they can sell your data and share their data, and what of your data can they even have access to. Here in the US, we kind of take it for granted. We just click on accepting terms and conditions and assume that our stuff's going to be sold. But in Europe, they've tightened up those regulations. You might think, well, that's Europe. That doesn't impact us here in the US. But if you're Facebook, it impacts you because that's a big market. And these companies are global companies. So, and what happens in one country tends to spread in other countries. Facebook has been under a lot of pressure lately to tighten up their advertising regulations. The Russian election meddling has put them in the hot seat with Congress, and you're going to see a lot more legislation coming down on social media and online businesses and their use of data. We're seeing it already with the GDPR legislation in Europe. And then we have economic factors. So these are things like, are we in an inflationary period or a recession? Is the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates? What does that mean for my business? Are consumers feeling confident? Are incomes going up? So, for example, if you're a home builder and the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates because they're concerned about the economy getting too inflated, too hot, and prices getting too high. And if you're a home builder and the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates to slow down the economy, well, that's going to impact your business. So people's ability to borrow money to buy homes or businesses to invest is directly related to interest rates. So if interest rates go up, people's ability to buy homes declines. If you're a luxury home builder that's building large, expensive homes, and you've purchased land and you're getting permits to develop that land, and this process takes several years, and during that process of acquiring that land and waiting for the permits to get approved, you're seeing interest rates increase, and you were planning to build a large luxury home development with homes of $1 million plus for large single family 3,000 square foot plus homes. Well, if rates increase significantly during that permit process, you could be in trouble because now you own land that you are going to build homes on that you probably can't sell. So that might mean you have to change it up and maybe re-permit that property and try to get it permitted as a mixed use or high density use area. So having a pulse on the economics and what's going on, maybe the economy's in a recession and you have a luxury brand like Tiffany's or Coach, Coach Leather and bags. Well, if you're in a recession, what does that mean for you? Perhaps you have to start selling in a different part of the world where that country isn't in a recession. So, as marketers, we are responsible for driving sales. And the rest of the company is going to turn to you as a marketer and ask you, what are you going to do? What are your solutions? And the answer can't be, we're in a recession, guys, and we're a luxury brand. I have no ideas. You would have to have some type of idea. So part of that process is being aware of what's going on. We're starting to enter a recession. We need some contingency plans here as far as our product offerings or what markets we start to serve so that we don't have our sales plummet.
Okay, our next one is cultural. So this has to do with the overall shifts in society, demographic factors, etc. Here we go.
So for example, look at millennials, folks who were born from 1979 to 1994. It's a big chunk of the population. About 83 million folks are millennials. You might be one of them. They spend about $200 billion annually. But millennials, as a demographic cohort, are less interested in ownership of things than, say, a baby boomer whose model is get married, buy a house, have a family, pay off your loan, retire, right? So millennials are familiar with the sharing economy and they value freedom. So very different values from that demographic versus the other demographic. Okay, this last slide is going to cover some of the main demographic segments here in the United States and the world at large. So each demographic segment, as I was mentioning in the previous slide, has its own needs and values and ways of consuming and viewing purchases. And these are the main 5 demographic cohorts.
All right, let me jump in on this slide with some new information. So looking at these different demographic segments on the left, what I want you to do is instead of the first two being tweens and teens, I want you to scratch that out and replace that instead with Generation Z. And Generation Z is folks born between 1995 and 2015, Generation Z. The second one is Millennials. Millennials being born between 1981 and 1995. The third, Generation X, and those are folks born between 1965 and 1980. I'm in that demographic cohort. And the last and the biggest and the most affluent would be baby boomers, folks born between 1946 and 1964. You can do a Google search and get something along the lines of information about Generation Z age group, and you'll get all kinds of information about those different segments. Know the date ranges at a minimum. These will show up on a quiz. Thank you.
Next up, we have competitive factors. What are your competitors doing? We're never operating in a vacuum with a business. You want to consider how many competitors are you up against? How big are they? How are they positioned in the marketplace? Who's the target market that they're serving? Are they domestic or are they foreign? So nowadays in our global economy, competitive threats are very real. We've seen legislation being passed around tariffs with the president trying to protect the U.S., favorable for some, unfavorable for others. But what your competitors are doing is certainly foremost in part of your marketing environmental factor consideration.
Okay, to wrap it all up, let's look at the 4 components of PEST, PEST factors: political, economic, social cultural, and technological. Hopefully now you understand how these are different and how each of these horizon, i.e. way out there, down the line, in the future, issues, factors, can impact your business and as a result, your marketing efforts. As marketers, we have to stay on top of these horizon issues so that we can keep steering the company in the right direction. Thanks for listening.